What's up, everybody? This is Sean coming on to show you guys my rosters. This is my second video. The first one, my rosters were pretty limited, so I've made several changes on here. I'm gonna go ahead and load my rosters real quick. So I'll start off with the throwback rosters and then I'll move forward. Alright, first off, we've got the 95-96 Bulls. You see that I've got Jordan, Olajuwon, Pippen, Karl Malone, John Stockton. I mean, this team is loaded. If you watch that era of basketball, you know how special this team will be. I mean, you got all the best players of that era really at their given position, pretty much. And then move forward to the Sonics with GP, Lonzo, put Ray Allen on there. He was a great Sonic for several years. Sean Kemp and Dilla Shrimp at the three, just 6'9", knockdown threes. That's pretty handy to have. And then moving it forward to the 2000-2001 Sixers with Julius Erving, AI, Moses Malone, Dikembe, Kyle Korver knocked down those much-needed threes. Who did, of course, play with the team later. He's not really a throwback player, but I got him on a throwback team. It's really just to fit a need more than anything, because they didn't have anyone that really consistently knocked down a three. And then the 2000-2001 Lakers. Of course, goes without saying, Shaq and Kobe. Threw the throwback Magic on there to play the point. Pau Gasol, who of course came later, won a couple championships with them. Nick the Quick coming off the bench. And I did throw Zerbiak on there at the three once again to be a dependable threat from the three-point range. I know I never played with them. I was looking for a good fit, someone who can knock down threes and be reliable, and he's about the best I could come up with. He's not on par with this level of talent, but I figured they already got enough star power anyway. And then the 02-03 Dallas Mavericks. Of course, Dirk, Nash, Michael Finley, Nick the Quick coming off the bench. And then, of course, I needed some defense. That team had no defense. So since I kind of broke up the Pistons group from 03-04, I went ahead and threw Ben Wallace and Tashawn Prince over here, which turned out to be a great fit. This team plays really well together. I mean, you got your defensive five, and then you got Tashawn Prince at the three, long, can knock down the three, plays great defense. You can get away with Ben Wallace being 6'9" at center whenever your power forward is 7 foot. It's a nice team. And then the 04-05 Suns. Man, how much fun was this team to watch back in the day. And of course, I left the pieces that were already there, and I just added one. You got Nash, you got Stoudemire, Marion, Joe Johnson. I mean, man, they really didn't need much because they were already pretty well rounded. They did need a defensive center that could rebound and block shots. Tyson Chandler is there currently. I figure, he's really a perfect fit for the way that team played, because you're talking about a big man who's long, lanky, runs the floor well, has some athleticism, block shots and rebounds. Bam. Perfect fit, throw him on there. I think he really kind of helps round out that team. 05-06 Heat. Of course, you got D Wade and Shaq, who were actually there and won the championship. Although I do have to say, that D Wade is one of my favorite all time. He damn near single-handedly won that championship. But anyway, I went ahead and I threw Amari Stoudemire on there because at that time, it was one of the moves that I had wished would happen, because I always thought Stoudemire and D Wade would have played so well together. So I went ahead and threw him on there. I took the old man Amari and kind of upgraded his rating to right around about what I felt he was at that time period. Threw him on there. You know, I gave him his dunking ability and everything back. So if you go and play with them, I mean, he'll throw down for you. Jay Rich. Jay Rich wasn't a great player, but he was really good for exactly this time period. So, I mean, if I go back and I show you his stats and his numbers, 05, 06, the man averaged 23 points a game. He's 38.4 from three. If you remember him with Golden State and then even his first year in Charlotte, you could see very consistent from three. And also extremely athletic. There weren't many better dunkers than Jay Rich. And then Rashard Lewis, 6'10", can knock down that three from the three spot. Kind of a convenience thing. He came later, obviously, but he did play for the Heat some years later. Throw him on there. This team is pretty nice. It's really nice. You play with it, you're going to do pretty well. You're not going to struggle against really any teams. They can hang with anybody. Then the Celtics, 07-08. I took Ray Allen off. You'll notice that. A lot of people, they may not like that. But, on the other hand, you got to put Bird on that team. The old team that they have him on here from his time period, it was not a fun team to play with, let's put it that way. But you put him on this team, and man, it's a perfect fit. So, therefore, I did take Ray Allen off, and as you saw earlier, I put that Ray Allen on the Supersonics, which really made a nice fit for them, too. So, once again, you got Bird, you got KG, Paul Pierce at the 2, Rajon Rondo, and then Jermaine O'Neal. I took the old man, Jermaine O'Neal. I bumped up his rating to right about what I felt it was at that time period, and I put him at center. It really helps round out that team. You're talking about a player who could score. More than anything, he could really block some shots. So that's another guy down low to help block some shots, grab some rebounds, throw down a dunk. He really helps protect that rim and round out this team. So once again, this team can hang with anybody. 07-08 Houston Rockets. I had to have this team. I didn't originally have this team on my first set of rosters. It was one of the reasons that inspired me to kind of restructure my rosters and do this over again. So you got T Mac, you got Yao Ming, of course. Steve Francis, which Steve Francis wasn't all that hot at that time. He was already starting to tail off. But I bumped up his rating back to about what it was a couple years or so prior to this time period. Left him at point guard. And then Carlos Boozer took him off of free agency, bumped up his rating to reflect right around what he was once again at that time. In 07-08, Carlos Boozer was damn good. You can see here, I'm showing you the numbers. Very impressive. And then Shane Battier, who really was with the team, he's going to play defense for you and knock down the threes. Team's very well-rounded, fun to play with, can hang with anybody. Pretty much all these teams that I've created, you can put them all up against each other. No one's really going to be outclassed. I know there's some absolute monsters on here, but all these teams can hang with each other. 2012-2013 Heat. First of all, isn't it kind of funny that they made this a throwback team? Seriously, it was only a few years ago. Anyway, it was one of my favorite teams. You got LeBron and D-Wade, of course, and then Chris Bosh and Ray Allen. And then I took Hassan Whiteside from the current Heat, and I threw him back here on this Heat team because that's what they needed at the time. That's why Bosh was playing center during that time period, because they needed someone tall, long, to block some shots. Now, Chris Bosh has never been a shot blocker, but he tried to be at that time period and knock down the three and stretch the floor. Well, he's much more comfortable and much better fit at the four. And then putting Hassan on here to be the tall, lanky guy to block the shots and rebound like he really, truly does is just the perfect fit. I play with this team. It is a beast. All right, so that's the throwback rosters. Then we move on. We move into our the more current teams. I got the Bulls, and you got Jimmy Butler, you got D Rose, and then I threw Chris Middleton on here at the 3 to be able to knock down the 3-pointers. He's a damn good 3-point shooter. Ever since he's come in the league, he's been over 40%. It just seemed to be the perfect fit, being that Rose. Him hitting a 3 is, I mean, he may go 1 of 5 in a game if you're really trying to force him up there with him. He's not a 3-point shooter by any means. Not to mention he's kind of fallen off a little bit, but still a good player. And then I throw Marc Gasol and Zach Randolph. I think they fit this team's mentality very well. A lot of the Eastern teams are tough defensive teams, tough-minded, and they can get physical. Well, Marc Gasol and Zach Randolph, that's what they do. They're physical players. They do things that don't show up in the stat sheet. And so anyway, I thought they really helped to round this team out. Especially since I took Pau Gasol off of the Bulls, current Bulls, and threw him on the Lakers where truly I felt that he should be. Well, you swap one Gasol for another, and I just think it's a perfect fit. Current Cavs, you've got everyone they do currently actually have: a LeBron, Kyrie, Kevin Love. And then I gave them, and J.R. Smith too is still starting on this team. I gave them Porzingis to start at center. I know he's not a star just yet, but he's showing a ton of potential. He's well on his way to becoming a star. And for video game purposes, you put him on this team, and it makes them very competitive. It also gives them some things that they didn't have prior to adding him, which is a big-time shot blocker, a lot of length in the front court. Also, he's someone who can still knock down that 3 or knock down a jump shot. So it just helps to really round out this team. You can see some of these bench players on there. Will Barton is a stud this year, in reality, and Mike Conley and other guys. All my teams, you can count on them to have deep teams. They all have depth. They all have nice benches. Some of the throwback teams maybe not as much, just because it's harder to find the bench players on for those rosters. But you know what? You're typically going to play with your stars the bulk of the time anyway. The Clippers. I went ahead and, of course they've got their big 3: Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan. But then I took Clay off Golden State, and you'll see what I did with them later. Took Clay and put him on here, and Rudy Gay. And I mean, these 2 additions just make this team an absolute monster. I mean, what else could you need? They've got the athleticism they need between Blake Griffin, Rudy Gay, and DeAndre Jordan. They got the shooting with Chris Paul and Klay Thompson. You've even got a really nice bench with Isaiah Thomas and a lot of the guys they had prior, and also a few other new key additions to the bench. But once again, it's a hell of a team. The Hawks. Yeah, I do have a few of the throwback players on current teams just because it's the way that it worked out the best. So Dominique, I love Dominique Wilkins, one of the most underrated players of all time. He would have gotten a lot more attention and respect if it weren't for the fact that he played against guys like Larry Bird and Michael Jordan, and I mean, if it weren't for those 2 guys outshining him and kind of stealing some of the attention away, everyone would have had a whole lot more respect for him. You're talking about a guy who averaged 26 a game for a long time. You can't see here if he doesn't show all his career stats, but outstanding player. And then Darren Williams, and I gave him a bit of a throwback rating to try to get him rated to about what I felt he was several years ago when he was with the Jazz, and then even the first year or so with the Brooklyn Nets. And then Joe Johnson, who of course had his best years with Atlanta. Once again, I gave him a throwback rating. Dikembe, who truly did play with Atlanta at one point in his career, who's a nice fit there. And then Josh Smith. Josh Smith was outstanding during his time with Atlanta. It just made sense. Of course, you've got a ton of athleticism with this team. You've got plenty of defense. There's not a whole lot of scoring up front, but you get either one of these guys down low and they're going to throw the dunk down, all right? And I mean, you got all your scoring back here in the backcourt and on the perimeter with these three. I'll tell you what, these two are two of the best shot blockers that you could have. And then, of course, I left guys like Paul Millsap, which, my God, to have Paul Millsap off the bench is outstanding. So, yeah, that's the Hawks. I didn't do a current Heat team for the simple fact that I have the two throwback Heat teams. So I figure I don't want to be repetitive. Also, I already have D-Wade on two teams. I tried not to do any more than two teams for one guy. It's kind of a little rule I try to go with. Here, we've got Orlando. T-Mac had his best years with Orlando. I had to have him on there. So I took the throwback T-Mac that they had on the Raptors. I bumped him up to what he was during, what I felt he was during the height of his career with Orlando. I put him on here with Eric Bledsoe, who is an outstanding player, underrated player. You go and look at what he does for a team. I mean, he does it all. At 6'1", the things he does is really impressive. And I mean, his speed is outstanding and athleticism. With guys like Al Jefferson, Vucevic, who really is there, and then Nicholas Batum, who once again, another very underrated player, a guy that's going to play great D for you, long, athletic, throw down the dunks, and knock down that open three. I mean, he just really helped to round out this team well. And so I played with this team as well. I played with all these teams. Once again, they're all very competitive. This team's ratings for their players may not be as high as others, but believe me, they'll hang with anyone. And the Pacers, Paul George, even after coming back from his injury now, has proven to still be an incredible player. They didn't have Reggie Miller on the game. I had to make him up myself. I think I did a pretty solid job. You look at him there in the picture. That looks pretty close to Reggie, right? I mean, I made his ears like the satellites, like they really were. I gave him hair because, of course, he did have hair for the first several years of his career. I put his age at 27 on here. It's hard to make a guy exact. I'll show you a little bit more up close what he looks like. When you see him up close, it doesn't look like Reggie much, I know. But if you go from a distance like this, that's pretty good, right? I think I did pretty well. Did pretty well with his rating. He's an 85 overall. I mean, you got to remember about Reggie. He played no defense, no rebounding, really no assists. He was a shooter. You know, he was what he was. I mean, he was an outstanding player, but he was simply a shooter. That's what he did. And if you look at all of his shooting stats are high, very high. So really nice fit. And Jermaine O'Neal. Of course, he had his best years with the Pacers. So I took the old throwback Jermaine O'Neal from the throwback Blazers on here. Brought him over here. Bumped his rating up to right about what I felt he was during his time with the Pacers. Might have even been worth a couple points higher, but overall I think I captured the player he was. And then a couple current players also, with Monte Ellis being there. Very good player for a long time in his career. Kind of winding down a little bit, but he's still a very good player. Miles Turner. I got Miles Turner starting at the 4. I bumped his rating up to a 79. That may be a point or two high at this point for him, but he's showing a lot of potential. I mean, he's a big man that can spread the floor, block shots, rebound. I think he is going to definitely evolve into a star. It may take a year or two, but he's definitely, I definitely feel anyway that he'll be there, he'll get there. So once again, this team's very nice. Then we got the Pelicans, of course, with Anthony Davis. I left Tyreke Evans on there because me personally, I like Tyreke as a player. I thought he was going to be a superstar. His first year in the league, he averaged 20 a game, as I can show you here. That first year was tremendous. 20, 5 and 5, and a steal and a half. Man, I thought that the sky was going to be the limit for him. The sky's the limits, but you know what? Maybe he hasn't turned out to be quite the player I had hoped, but he's still a very good player. And to be 6'6" and be able to play the point guard the way that he can, it just really makes for a real nice fit, and it's a tough matchup. So I left him there, and then VC, I really didn't have anywhere to put him, the throwback VC. So I had to come up with a spot for him. To me, this fit just made sense. This team needed another star. After I was assembling the rest of these teams, there wasn't many quote-unquote stars left. So he is a perfect fit on this team. He's the other star to complement Anthony Davis. And then I bring over Harrison Barnes from Golden State, who they really didn't need. And once again, I'm going to show you what I did with Golden State in just a minute. But, you know, they had so much depth that I took him, I moved him over here. Plus, I think he will leave them at some point. They can't afford to keep everybody over there. But you talk about a guy who plays defense. Has a very high vertical, can throw the dunks down. You see him throwing down vicious dunks, and a very reliable three-point shooter. And then Rudy Gobert, just to help Anthony Davis protect the rim. And I mean, hell, between he and Anthony Davis, that rim is well protected, believe me. So this is actually one of my favorite teams to play with. Move on to Detroit. Why didn't Detroit draft Carmelo Anthony? That was a huge mistake for them. During the time that they could have had him, that's whenever they had Chauncey, they had Rip, you know, they had Ben Wallace and Tayshaun Prince. Tayshaun Prince would have been coming off the bench. Sorry, if they would have drafted Melo, Tayshaun would have came off the bench, but that'd have been all right because Melo was what they needed. They needed that big time scoring threat. And that's what Melo was. They really missed the boat on that one. So, being that this is a fantasy thing in a video game, took him, I put him on here. I could have put him back on the Nuggets and tried to make it a kind of Nuggets team, but I never really did like that Nuggets team the way they're assembled. The only thing I really liked about them is I like their jerseys. Quite honestly, I think J.R. Smith could have been a stud while he's there, but they messed that up by bringing AI on board. As soon as they brought AI on board, J.R. Smith regressed. But nonetheless, getting back to the rosters, you got Melo on here. I put the throwback Chauncey, throwback Rip Hamilton. Then you got Drummond, who's currently there, who's outstanding, playing the center. And Greg Monroe, who just left prior to this season. Throw him back on here just to kind of help round out that team. And an outstanding team. And then the Rockets. You got James Harden and Dwight Howard, who are actually currently there, obviously. You throw Dirk Nowitzki over there, and oh boy. I mean, that just really helps round them out. You know, Dwight doesn't have many post moves. Actually, you could damn near say any post moves. You get him down low, and he will dunk on somebody for sure. But that's about it. You throw Dirk down there, and oh man. I mean, that just really helps them out down low. Well, and also to spread the floor. Kyle Lowry, who really did play with the Rockets for at least a couple years or so. And he just made sense, especially since I wasn't going to have a Raptors team. I could have had Kyle Lowry, DeMar DeRozan, VC, Chris Bosh, and came up with the center. But I wasn't so wild about that squad, and I liked where I had them instead. So I went with this, and along with DeMar DeRozan at the 3. Team is really well-rounded. You know, DeMar DeRozan can't knock down the 3 very well, but you put Dirk on here, and he makes up for that. You got 3 people that can knock down the 3, and you got DeMar DeRozan for his athleticism because other than Dwight, DeMar DeRozan's your other dunker in this lineup. And then we've got the Spurs. I did something over here that a lot of people may not like, but Kobe Bryant, you think about all of his battles against the Spurs, Also, with him being an older player, it just made sense the way that the Spurs get everything they can out of players, and they needed it too. I could have went ahead and made Ginobili a throwback and gave him a throwback rating and put him in the starting lineup. That's what I was going to do originally, but I just felt like, that was kind of boring, and I didn't have anywhere else to put Kobe really anyway. And so I just felt like, with all of his history battling against the Spurs, to me, this just felt good, you know? So I went ahead and I bumped up his rating a point or so, and made him a bit of a throwback. Of course, he's 86, so it's not like I took him back to whenever he's at his peak. I mean, otherwise, if I'd have done that, the man would have been a 96, 97, 98. I didn't do that, but I did bring him back to life a little bit. And I put him on here with current players like LaMarcus Aldridge, Kawhi Leonard, Tim Duncan at center, and Tony Parker. I also gave them plenty of bench. As you can see, the bench is loaded over here still. Loaded. Spurs are loaded. I won't bother to say that again, but you see what's there? The Thunder, one of my personal favorites, with Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook, of course, and Serge Ibaka. My two key additions to this team were Brook Lopez and Wesley Matthews. Wesley Matthews is a tough player that plays great defense, has always shot the three at a very high rate, except for this year. This year his numbers are down considerably with the Mavericks if you go and look at them. But I think that's due to the system and the way they use him. I think it really hurt him. That was a real bad fit for him. On the other hand, I feel like if he would have went to the Thunder, that would have been a great fit for him. He may not have gotten a ton of shot attempts, being that they have Westbrook and Durant, but whenever he did get them, I think he would have knocked them down, and he would have brought some much-needed defense over there. And then Brook Lopez, I mean, what can I say about this guy? I mean, he's not an all-star, but I'll tell you what, he's one of the best post scorers in the NBA. And then you've got his length and his shot blocking over there. He's not a great rebounder either, but I mean, his shot blocking has always been tremendous. And, and Serge Ibaka to knock down those threes and block the shots the way that he really, truly does. If you notice, I bumped up his rating a few points. I don't know why they rated him so low. How can you rate a guy an 80 whenever he can shoot threes at 38% and block over 2 shots a game and shoot mid-range at a high clip? I mean, the guy he's a better player than he's able to show, quite honestly. Then you got the T-Wolves. Could have threw Garnett on a throwback team, but Garnett, once again, he's one of my favorite players ever. Actually, I named my son Cameron Gavin for his first name and his middle name, so that I would be able to call him KG if I like, because of Kevin Garnett, and also Ken Griffey Jr. But Kevin Garnett was, to me, he's the second best power forward of all time. Personally, I like to feel like he was the first. I would say Tim Duncan because of the championships, but Tim Duncan wasn't nearly as versatile as Garnett. Garnett could guard 1 through 5, and he could guard any position on the floor. He could knock down the mid-range with the best of them. He blocked shots. He stole the ball. He was great with assists, one of the best rebounders. I mean, what couldn't this man do? I just felt like he deserved to be on the T-Wolves, especially since the T-Wolves have 2 of my favorite young players currently, which are Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins. Karl Anthony Towns, oh my God. I knew this guy was tremendous, but what he's done this year as a rookie, whoo, you've got to be impressed. I mean, he looks like he's going to be an all-time great. I mean, to come in the league and play the way he has is outstanding. You realize this man's shooting threes at just about 38%, and he's attempting about 2 a game. And he's blocking about 2 shots a game, giving you 17 points, 10 rebounds. I mean, man, really impressive. I love Andrew Wiggins, but I've got to be honest. I'm starting to feel like the T-Wolves are more so Anthony Towns' team, even more than Wiggins. Although that's debatable. These players are both outstanding. Anthony Towns is blowing me away right now. And then you throw a little Damian Lillard over there, and Terrence Ross, who actually I have as the other starter. I was getting a little thin on starters over here, and Terrence Ross and Will Barton are two guards that I feel should be starting, even though they had them both listed as small forward. They're 6'7" and 6'6". Neither one of them rebound. Neither one of them play a whole hell of a lot of defense. I don't see why their teams play them at the 3. I guess because so many twos are so short now at like 6'3", 6'4", that you can get away with the guy at 6'6" playing the 3, but they're really 2 guards. Outstanding 2 guards offensively. So I put him in starting lineup. This team plays very well together. I mean, it's a blast to play with this team. Golden State Warriors. You can see what I did now. Did you realize that Wilt Chamberlain played with the Golden State Warriors? And I'm going to show you here. He actually played with them for quite a while. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5 years. And you see here, what can you say about the numbers this man put up? I mean, they're ungodly. It's unbelievable. Anyway, I just felt like I might as well throw him over there. I didn't want to use any guys from this far back, but I just felt like if there was one guy that I was going to use from that time period, it would be Wilt the Stilt Chamberlain, being that he was the best statistical player all time by far. Though I do feel like those numbers are inflated, being that he was 7'1", playing against a bunch of uncoordinated white dudes that were about 6'4", 6'5" at the time, and was just able to really dominate. It was kind of unfair, damn near. But nonetheless, threw him on here, being that they're an outstanding team, and they deserve to have an outstanding team that can compete with these others. Of course, you've got Steph Curry over here, and who I believe is definitely their second best player, maybe their most important player to the way that they play, being Draymond Green. I felt as long as I had Steph Curry here and Draymond Green from the current team, they were good. And Draymond Green plays power forward in real life. At 6'7", to play power forward on the video game, good luck with that. Whenever you're going to be going up against guys routinely who are 6'10", 6'11", at the small forward, and in some cases, like Dirk, even 7 foot at the 4. I mean, you're just going to be too undersized. It's a video game, you know. You can't just push guys around and do some things you can in real life. So therefore, moving him to the 3 really made a lot of sense. He's outstanding defensively. He's got the 3, and so he could play the 3 very easily. I brought Mitch Richmond over to replace Clay, who I took off. And I mean, Mitch Richmond was a very good player. Once again, a very underrated player who played with the Warriors for a few years. And then Chris Bosh. Chris Bosh just fit their team really well. You know, you want a 4 that can stretch the floor, play a little defense, and he's tall and long and can run the floor. I gave him his throwback number of 4 from whenever he's with the Raptors, just to kind of bring that touch back to it. And I just feel like this team's outstanding with Steph and Chamberlain and Richmond, Green and Bosh. I feel I did them justice for sure. And they have, as I said earlier, plenty of bench through D'Angelo Russell on here. I let him keep his number 1. That was another reason I gave Bosh the 4. And then last but not least, the Wizards with John Wall, of course, and Bradley Beal. I left those 2 there, who are truly their 2 best players currently. And I added Derek Favors and Gordon Hayward from the Jazz. Felt that they were a nice fit. And DeMarcus Cousins, reunited him with John Wall. It just seems to make sense. It seems like a good fit, and it's just kind of fun to do, being that they played together in Kentucky. So those are my teams. I hope you like them. I hope you download them and play with them. and I was happy to show you. Thanks for watching my video. Make sure to look out for more in the future. The channel's Ransom Family Videos. My name's Sean. I'll catch you next time.